Hello, and in today's video we're going to be talking about bad emotions, or bad emotions. And I say bad because are there really any bad emotions? Not really, arguably not. But we deem some emotions as bad, and that's what I want to talk about today. So, a little bit of context. Normally within eating disorders there is this avoidance of negative feelings. If that's something that we've experienced in the past, we're trying to avoid it in the future. We put in certain rules and regulations to try and avoid going there and feeling those feelings. It's something that I am working through quite a bit at the minute. I've noticed that I do have a tendency to think that emotions are a bit of a waste of time and that they would stop me being as efficient, which is a whole topic in itself, of this idea that we have to be efficient all of the time, but we're not going to go into that today, just more about kind of bad emotions. So within bad emotions, specifically for myself, I'll give a bit of personal insight, is that I built in certain rules around food and exercise to try and avoid regret. I've said this so many times, but regret is an emotion that I feel like is potentially the worst in the world. And arguably I haven't experienced every single emotion, but for me, regret is one of those big ones. So by developing in rules, I was avoiding regretting things, because if I followed this rule, I wouldn't regret not have following it and then spiralling, and that's what we always want to avoid, is this idea of spiralling. I also want to give a bit of a side note in that I want, again, these videos to be very real. We are all human. Emotions are these things that we experience, and actually it isn't about trying to get rid of emotions. I think we live in a society where it's all like happy, 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 everything's got to be sparkly and shiny all of the time, but actually there's something very human about bad emotions or negative emotions, and we need to learn to start embracing them and accepting them. Sometimes it isn't always about fighting them, it's about sitting with them. I have a therapist that I was very fond of, and she always said to me that sometimes you just got to sit in this, because that's life, and there's nothing. I'm not going to try and like wish it away or sparkle it away. It's life. Sometimes we have bad times, but I guess it's learning how to deal with those times better, or learning to accept them more. I think another little bit of context around emotions is Rumi's poem. I think it's Rumi. His writing about the idea that we are houses, we are homes, and emotions are visitors. So I'd really recommend reading through that poem. It's about these emotions coming as guests, and you would never reject a guest or welcome a guest in forever. You expect them to just come in for a little bit of time, you give them a cup of tea, you host them, and then you let them leave. You allow them to take up space in you and have a presence in you, but you don't pander to them, you don't indulge them, you just acknowledge their presence, you give them something whilst they're there, and then you let them leave. So it is this kind of process of accepting emotions, letting them go, accepting emotions, letting them go. I guess I also just want to point out the importance of not doing this if you're in a really negative space. You need to feel semi on top of life, semi on top of things before you start reaching into these bad emotions that you're trying to avoid, because bad things might come up and you need to feel in a place that you can support yourself, or you have supportive people around you that can help you kind of guide you through this, or you're able to have a firm foundation before digging into these bad things or bad things. Yeah. So the first question for today is, can you identify an emotion that terrifies you, that you at all costs will try and avoid? So at the minute, just pick one. You can come back to this activity and do it again. I'm sure there's a few different emotions that people can kind of be quite scared of. So just pick one emotion that kind of scares you. The second question is, what is it about this emotion that scares you? So write maybe a list, have a think about it, talk through what is it about that emotion that you are scared of. Number 3 is, can you identify how that emotion feels? And when I say that, a lot of my emotions I feel quite physically, so stress in my shoulders, regret in my heart, my stomach. So identifying where that emotion sits and really feeling it out, or if it is very in your head, like what are the words that come up around that. Really brainstorm what is the feelings, the thoughts, the emotions around that emotion, what comes up, and really flesh it out. I think this allows you to really uncover what is behind that emotion. And number 4 might feel really difficult, and it's not really a question, but it's just asking you to sit with that emotion. Can you take yourself there? And by taking yourself there, you will truly understand what it is to be there. I also recommend doing that because sometimes with emotions, if we're scared of them, and I know I've done this in the past, it's like, I've got this emotion, I'm going to build a wall around it, and then I'll put some fences, and then I'll lock it, and then I'll just distance myself as much as possible from an emotion. I'm not going to go there, don't want to talk about it, leave it over there. But sometimes by taking yourself to that place, you're like, oh, it's actually not that bad. And I'm not a scientist, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that emotions are just some chemicals going on in our bodies. So by taking yourself to that place, you're able to really unpick that emotion and go, oh, I can do this, I can sit in it. It isn't, again, like trying to flower it away. There's no answer, there's no way of just being like, oh, if you do this, this and this, the emotion goes away. It's actually about learning to really embrace that and learn, almost sounds cheesy, but like to love that emotion, whether it be a negative one, and almost like welcome it and be like, oh, hi emotion, you're here again, cool, thanks for coming. And not feeling like you always have to fight it, because I think in fighting it you demonize it. But if you just embrace it and you go there, you're able to kind of sit with it in a more positive way. And as mentioned at the beginning, we have this tendency to want this happy, shiny life, sparkly. But there's something amazing in just learning to embrace the ordinary. Again, that's another topic that I want to cover, but that every moment doesn't need to be perfect. You don't have to have a perfect emotion all of the time. Sometimes we feel bad and sometimes we feel great. So it's about learning to embrace all of those moments. So just to summarise, these questions are firstly just for you to identify that maybe being scared of bad emotions is something that you are scared of emotions, and that's the first step, being aware. And secondly, I'm just hoping that it's given you an opportunity to go to these emotions, feel it out, realise it's not that scary, understand maybe why you're scared of it, and how you can stop using other coping mechanisms to deal with it, because if you're able to just sit with it, you don't need these rules to avoid it. Again, as always, I feel like I've only just touched the surface of this topic, so it's something that I'll definitely come back to, but here are some, a couple of activities that you can do to begin with. So thanks for watching, and let me know what's come up for you in the comments.